This is partners in the process, 'cause we're built better together.
We are here with Keaton Hoskins and his beautiful wife, Madi, correct?
Yep.
They've invited us out to their house to do a podcast. Thank you guys so much for bringing us out. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I thank you for coming on, because some of the questions that I know that we wanted to ask, we really wanted to know your perspective and his perspective on certain things about business and marriage, and kind of how those two things go hand in hand. Because we work really closely with people who they're couplepreneurs, but people who are either in business together or people that are just doing business while together, because it's the same difference.
Right.
And the struggles that normal entrepreneurs go through are completely different than when you have a wife or a significant other and family. When you add kids into that, it just the folds tenfold.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your house is beautiful.
Thank
This is
you.
our first time here in Salt Lake, so it's been wonderful.
Oh, it's the first time out.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I
Okay.
said the mountains make it
Yeah.
They are.
out here.
It's different, right?
It's
Yep.
way different. We've been to Arizona multiple
Yeah.
times, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And we kind of expected it to be similar, but once we landed and got out and walked around, we're like, this is way different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we really like it out here.
Yeah,
We're
it's
staying
great.
downtown at like the Hyatt, so we're like
It's
in the middle of
great.
town, so we can walk around and
Yeah.
check things out. It's beautiful down there. You got like art museums.
It's
and,
really clean. Salt Lake's a
Mhm.
very clean city.
yeah,
And there's just, I mean, it's like I was telling you guys earlier before we started, I travel a lot. And not that I'm like boasting of my own city, but like it's a very nice place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody that comes out here though,
Loves it.
like first time is like,
Mhm.
this is awesome.
what's like
Yeah.
one of the best things to do? Like if you come to Salt Lake, you're like, you have to go do this.
You know what's so cool about Salt Lake is you have everything here. So, you know, in the wintertime, you have snowmobiling and skiing and snowboarding. In the summertime, you have lakes and hikes and mountains. There's so much to do here, but I will say the number one thing, I mean, I think it's like the fourth most visited place in the world is Moab, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Moab is essentially, it looks like Mars. It's completely like there's nowhere in the world like Moab. It's these red rocks. Like if you picture Mars, and even in movies where they film Mars, it's most likely out in southern Utah. In
Dominic
Moab.
has been gnawing on me for years.
Yes.
Going on to Moab.
It is such a beautiful place. So when you ask like what's a must, I always tell people you got to go down there.
How far is it from here?
It's about a 3-hour drive from here. You can rent UTVs or Jeeps. You can run through trails and courses. You can see lakes. You can do these cool hikes. It's just such a beautiful place you can't see anywhere else in the world. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's beautiful to have mountains. It's beautiful to have lakes, but you can get those almost anywhere. Moab is completely different than anywhere in the whole world. I always tell people that's what you got to do.
Yes.
That's you got to check that out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. We're gonna have to check that because he's been, like I said, he's been my son that we talked about earlier. Is really into side by sides and 4-wheelers and
Yeah.
dirt bikes and all that. And he's like, Dad, we got to go to Moab. And
Oh, he would love it.
yeah,
He would love, and you guys would love it too. What's
Yeah.
so cool, you know, you even talk about like the North Stars.
Mhm.
You go get your family, you get an ice chest, you pack a lunch, you go hit the trail. It's a 2 or 3 hour trail. You have lunch on the trail, and it's just the craziest scenery you could possibly imagine.
is it all just rocks and
It's
like
it's
wind?
everything. Yeah, it's
water
sand, it's
rocks?
desert, it's rock, but it's such a different rock. Like you've never really seen an orange and a red rock that
Mhm.
just goes for miles and miles and miles. You feel like you're on a different planet.
Oh, that's cool. We definitely
is
have
cool.
to check that.
Yeah.
out. Bucket list. Let's go.
It's a must.
Okay, so one of the things that we had talked about that we really wanted, it was a question that her and I had thought about a lot, and it's something that we ourselves have gone through. And you have got multiple businesses going on right now. What are your top businesses that you're working on right now?
You know, honestly, the only business that I'm really truthfully working on is Limitless Society, which essentially is my coaching program and group where I just help people understand their true potential.
Mhm.
If you could unlock in your mind the idea that you could do anything you ever wanted to do in this life, that's the very beginning for you to be able to do it.
Right.
And I love it. I love to teach people and show them that their capability and potential is so much greater than they actually fathom. Because once you start to unlock that with somebody, it's a beautiful thing to see them change. So that's pretty much my main, I mean, I would say 95% of my focus is that. I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring. I do a lot of group, but it's Limitless Society where we have these awesome events. We do coaching calls every week. And the best part is I have this cool app where all the thousands of people that are in Limitless connect and they're doing deals all over the place.
That's
It's
awesome.
so cool. That's my main focus and my main business. But outside of that, I've started 35 companies since I was 21. So I'm 36 now. So in the last 15 years, I've started about 35, maybe even more than that. I've owned companies from plastic surgery clinics to dental offices to marketing companies to hard loan companies to just all over the place. And I've either sold them or I've been bought out, whatever. But as of now, I have, as we were talking a little bit earlier, I have a TRT company that we just launched. I just sold a fitness expo called FitCon that I had. I own another company where we put on events. I had the biggest entrepreneurial event here in Utah.
Oh,
It was
I
called-
hate that I missed it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it was so phenomenal,
The
dude. Limitless Arena.
I got invited out,
Oh,
and it just wasn't going to work with
dude,
the schedule
it
we
was
had.
such a great event. I mean, you saw the videos,
Oh,
I'm sure.
yeah.
Like we had Ludacris here on the
Yeah.
balcony
I
performing.
was like, babe, I could sit in the living room and listen to
And listen to,
Ludacris
and
talk
it
to
was,
Ed Millett. She's
yeah, like
if you can make it work, I'm like, I can't. The
it
schedule's not
was
gonna work.
so phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
it was so cool. So we have that business and that company, which has really been enjoyable. And what we're trying to do now is we're trying to scale in a way where we're going to do small events here in the home, and then we're going to do really big events. In fact, our next event, and this would be an announcement because I haven't really announced it yet, but we're going to do a couples marriage mastermind here at the house, which I'm really excited
That
for.
would be awesome.
Because I think a lot of people need help in their marriages, and I don't think there's a lot of leaders in the industry, period, that have everything across the board. And obviously, the marriage is a big one, so we're going to be doing that. I own, have you heard the company Crumble?
Oh yeah, the cookies.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I own the competing company, or I have ownership in a competing company called Dirty Dough. Same exact idea as Crumble. We've got about 47 franchises open. We've got about 300 that have been sold. We actually have one in St. Louis. So I've got ownership in that. I know this sounds so bad, but when I start to think about the companies I own, I'm like, all right, hold on. What am I doing? What else do I?
And I know you got a ton of them, and I know Limitless is kind of like your baby. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's
your
the
pet
one that
project.
I
This one,
love.
because that's you said that's your purpose.
Yeah,
You're
it's the one I
I have
love.
found this is what I really love. So like, when did that take birth? When did you decide that you wanted to take what you know
Yeah.
and share it with everybody else?
So about 2 years ago, I was just thinking about a new company that I wanted to launch, and her and I had a conversation, and I was like, I think I want to help people. So just haphazardly, I get online and I'm like, I want to create 10 millionaires this year because I know how to do that. I don't know how to do big exits. I've never sold a company for 100 million. But I'll tell you what I have done. I built companies that make millions of dollars, and I've done it with very little money. So I was like, you know what? I want to help people become millionaires, whatever that is. You know, in fact, one of the first people I talked to was a trucking guy. And so I put a post up saying, I want to make 10 millionaires. And I had thousands and thousands of people like, well, how do you do it? I'm in. I want in. And I was like, holy shit, like this is a real thing.
Yeah.
I want to build people. Rather than another company, I want to build people. So
Manufacturer of people.
we sat on our couch and we were like, we were thinking about the name. She helped me come up with the name, and I was like, you know, all I want to do is show people that they're limitless. That's all I want to do.
How did you come up with that? Because there's going to be a connection here in a second.
Well, we talked about a few different names. I can't. Why did we solidify Limitless?
I think it wasn't us. It was you. You solidified it, and she was like, I think that's the name, because I had come up with like 15 names.
Yeah, we were like Googling
And
stuff.
Yeah, and nothing really felt right. And then I knew in my mind I loved the word society. And I was like, Premier Society, you know, high society. In fact, I think high society was one of the ones. And then I told her, I was like, I just want to show people how to become limitless. And it was like, well, why not Limitless Society? And I was like, I love that. So that week, I was with some really good friends that actually both have coaching companies, Rob Bailey and Sean Whalen, and they were like, "Dude, you got to do it. Like, launch a company. Like, you're living the life everybody wants to live. Why wouldn't you show people how to do that?"
That's a gift, man. It's a
Yeah,
gift. Like,
and-
let's share it.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, let's do it, and we launched, and we had like 300 people sign up. And they were like, yeah, show me how to do it. And I was like, holy shit, this is a real thing.
I remember you were like, what if I only have 10 people?
Mhm.
Oh,
Like,
I know.
What is that gonna be?
And
So now you're like 300. I caught it. So
Yeah.
now what am I gonna do?
yeah, what am I
Yeah.
going to do? And luckily, because of Sean and Rob, they were like, dude, it's simple. Start a Discord where they can all meet and start teaching every week. Do a group call every week. Teach principles, mindsets, and habits of the successful.
Mhm.
And that's it, dude. That's all you got to do. And then start doing some events. I was like, I can do that. I love that idea. And at that time, I had multiple other companies. And I was like, man, this is dope.
Mhm.
Then what was so cool is within the first like 4 months, I had 4 people come back to me. They're like, dude, I literally am going to make $1 million this year. And I was like, holy shit, this is like real. Like
Yeah.
all I'm doing is sharing to them what I've been doing, and they're catching it. And I had one guy specifically, he had done $900,000 in a roofing business.
Mhm.
And we had sat down, and I hadn't even started doing one-on-one mentoring. We had sat down, I'd given him some of my time. I was like, here's what you need to do. You got to put infrastructure in, you got to do this, boom, boom, boom. And dude, he came back to me. He's like, dude, I'm not only on track to do 4 million, I've made $1 million in the last 4 months.
Wow.
He's like, Keaton, this is legit. I'm going to be a millionaire this year. And I was like, what? And then when he came to me, dude, he was in tears. He's like, this changes my family. It changes my, and I was like, this is it.
And that right there just lights your soul
This
on
is,
fire,
it
doesn't it?
lights you on fire, dude. I've had 1 million companies and
Yeah.
none of them light
Made
me
you
on
feel that
fire
way.
like this. So I told her, I was like, this is what I want to do. And then within about 8 months, I had hundreds of people like, I need your time. I want an hour of your time. And I got to the point where I'm like, I want to give everybody my time, but I can't. And so I was like, well, I'm going to start doing one-on-one mentoring. It's going to be very expensive because I only want to play with real players.
Correct.
I don't want to play with people that are like, hey, here's $200. I don't want to do that.
A lot of
shit.
people don't understand that, and so when we get in a room with people like us, they think, well, you guys are just overpriced and you're being ridiculous. What they don't understand is the accountability that comes with somebody paying
Exactly.
that amount of money. If they pay that amount of money, they're going to pay attention, and I
100%.
need you to listen to what I'm saying.
Yes.
So if you're willing to bring that, then I know you're going to pay attention because you're invested.
Well, so I took this whole idea from a long time ago when I was really young. I owned a personal training company, and I used to have 100% method of getting people to become successful in their fitness. 100%. I never had anybody fail. Even to this day, I still do it randomly just for fun. I tell people, I'll sit down with people and I'll just say, hey, what do you have in your bank account?
Mhm.
Right? I've got X amount. Okay. How much do you need to live for the next month or 2 months? I need this. I said, okay, you're going to write me a check for the difference, and I'm going to give it back to you when you reach your goal. Without fail. They always accomplish their goal. Always. I mean, I just did it a month ago. I had a kid, never in his life thought he could ever be where he's at today. 4 months ago, I said, hey, dude, I want a $15,000 check. You'll get 15 grand back when you reach your goal. He dropped 30% body fat in 4 months.
It's crazy.
Hit this
Crazy.
phenomenal goal. You know what I did? Here's your 15 grand, bro.
So what's from the entrepreneur side? What's your backside?
So that whole thing is when you invest money, you invest everything that you have.
Mhm.
So if you come to me and say, hey, man, I really want your help. Okay, cool. Are you willing to invest in yourself? No, I'm not. You're not going to be successful.
all
I
in?
promise you won't. And people all the time, they bitch and complain like, well, if it's really that beneficial, you would do it for free. No, I wouldn't, because then I'd be surrounded by people who are not willing to invest in themselves or in their company. And it's not going to happen.
Correct.
You have to be willing to invest in yourself and in your company. And the more you invest, the more you become successful. So when you come to me and say, oh, I don't want to spend this money, I go, cool, then you don't really want to be successful.
Yeah.
And here's the craziest part. There's levels to it. It never stops.
Right.
You know, like I'm really good friends with Ed Milet and Andy Frizella. I've probably paid Ed $500,000 to have the knowledge that I have from him, to have the relationship that I have with him. Like he's texting me saying, hey man, I want you to come out to the island and spend a weekend with me and my family. Well, why is that?
Yeah.
Because I spent the money with him. I listened to the things that he had to say. I did them. I implemented them. And now I'm successful more than I was. I spent 100 grand and I made $1 million.
Yeah, when you look
I
at the
spent $1
ROI.
million. I made 10 million. So when you come and your mindset of scarcity is, well, I don't want to spend the money, cool, then continue to play the game you're playing, man. But if you really want to go all in on yourself, I'll show you how to be successful as shit.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately where I've got behind this idea. And it's hard. It's not fun. It's not fun to tell somebody like, hey, I know that you really want to do this, but you're not willing to invest in yourself. So like, I'm not willing to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a standard that I uphold because I don't want to waste my time. I just don't.
Yeah. And no, and the people that you want them to be successful because ultimately you're invested in this emotionally and as well. Like
Absolutely.
if I'm going to bring this to you, I want to see you change. So I have to, what's the thing that you hold most valuable to you? Almost every one of them, it's their money.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my God. It's
Yeah.
my money. Okay. Well, I'm going to need that. And you want my time. That's the thing that's most valuable to me. So I will give you my time, but I need to see change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. So
And
it's a contract of both of us saying we're going to do this and we're going to go all in.
Yeah. And it's hard to find people who are willing to do that.
It's really hard. It's gotten much easier because I tell people all the time, you shouldn't listen to anybody who doesn't have the life you want. You just shouldn't. So if I'm not the person, like when you see my life, and a lot of people take it as bragging, but you see my life and they go, oh man, I want that. Cool. I'll show you how to do it. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be taking advice from anybody that doesn't have a life that you want.
Right.
Like I had somebody the other day said, wouldn't it be cool to sit down with Warren Buffett? And I was like, no, not at all.
Right.
I wouldn't listen to anything that guy had to say. He doesn't have the life that I want. He's a slave to money. Even though he has a ton of it, he's a slave to money. He has a $300,000 house. He drives a 2004 Camry. He's got more money than anybody on this planet. And he's not enjoying and having the life that he wants. That's horrible. I don't want that. I wouldn't take any advice. All you're going to do is show me how to pad my bank account and then lose all the friends and all the memories and all the experiences. I don't want to do that.
And maybe that's what he wanted. And respect to
Totally.
him for everything he's accomplished.
Totally fine.
Right?
No
But
problem. But I don't
that's
want
what
that.
you want, but I don't want that. Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And so even, people that listen to this podcast, if they're like, well, how do I get to where I want? Well, first find somebody who has what you want.
Right.
Then pay them for the speed to get it. Can anybody get there? Absolutely. But it might take you 10 years. What if you could pay to do it in 1 year?
Right.
That's what I want.
The idea of compressing time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And so ultimately, dude, that's what Limitless Society is. That's what my one-on-one mentoring is, and it's what I enjoy the most. And like I said, I've got so many other companies I don't really even pay attention. I have a rental company. You see some of my vehicles here.
Mm-hmm.
I rent those out.
Mm-hmm.
That Lamborghini does phenomenal.
I was joking with you because
on-
I was
Yeah.
looking for cars to rent,
Yeah.
and I said, babe, I'm almost positive that's his
Yeah.
Lamborghini. And I'm like, it looks so. I sent it to you.
Yeah.
I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I showed up in this? And your response was all I needed to know. I'm like, yeah. Well, he's getting groceries with it today, so I don't think I could have rented it.
But yeah, dude, like same thing. We rent. I think it's $1,400 a day to rent it. It's a 2-day minimum, so it's like I know when that goes out, I'm making $2,800. I rent it out probably 12 to 17 days a month.
I've got friends in St. Louis doing it, and I didn't realize it was such a big venture.
It's crazy.
I've got a really good friend of mine in St. Louis he's really well off. He's retired. His family owned a construction company for, I don't know, it's like 2 or 3 generations. But anyway, they sold the company, and he got his shares and retired after 45 years he put into this company. So he's got exotic cars and stuff like that, and we all met at an exotic car group. Anyway, he went in, bought this car with some other friends of ours that have some exotic cars they use on Turo. And he's like, between the insurance deal, depending on how you do it, and the fact that we had this thing booked out 33 days already, he goes, if we were flipping this car like they originally planned on flipping,
Yeah.
he's like, my take would have been about 15 or 18 grand.
Yeah.
He goes, I'll make that in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, I think we're just going to keep the car,
Yeah.
which I had a McLaren, a 720.
Yeah.
And they're kind of fickle. They're not as nice as
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Lambos.
yeah.
They're a little bit, Lamborghini's got their stuff figured out.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
V10s. And she's like, well, you'd probably be breaking all the time. I'm like, if they wrecked it or broke anything, you got the insurance. So
Absolutely.
it's actually another really good business thing that
It's
people don't
such
know
a great
about.
business. I tell people all the time, there's nowhere in the world that you can take an investment of, let's say $250K, right? And make 10 to 15 to 20 grand a month from it. You can't find a house. You can't short-term rental. You can't do that. And if you are, you're spending $2 million for a dope house that's going to do 4 or 5 grand a night.
Right.
It's the same thing, dude. And so for me, it was one of those where I was like, yeah, this is one of those businesses I want to do. I don't want to pay any attention to it. So I have a whole team that runs it, a whole team that does it. And I truly enjoy it. But again, you go back to like, well, yeah, how many businesses do you have? I don't know, man. I'd have to sit here and start writing down on paper. And then I go, oh, yeah, that's right. I own the cookie company. I got the rental business. I have a marketing. All of it has very little of my time. The majority of it is showing people how to have the life that they want in Limitless Society.
And that's really what we wanted to talk about. And also all of that was for me to say, I understand, and for anybody watching this and who've watched any other podcast with you, they understand you have done a lot of things. You're a very accomplished guy. I don't want to focus on the muscle because
Yeah.
I know that's a brand. I know how you got that name. It's not what a lot of people think. I want to focus on Keaton Hoskins
Yeah.
and his family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because to me, I don't think people always see the person behind the character. They
Yeah.
kind of start to look at you as a character. And when you do this and you live this life and you're on camera a lot and you're putting content out, it all has a purpose. Everything we do, it has a purpose. And so this right here, we're really interested in understanding how you become the fire that just kind of pushes him in the things that he does. Because I mean, if you're helping family all day long, or exactly how that dynamic looks, that's what we want to know. Because I truly believe behind every good man is a great woman that makes him even better. And so if I want to do really big things, I have to have a really great woman behind me that's pushing me. I can do great things on my own, don't get me wrong, but I can go 10 times further with her pushing me.
Yeah.
So that's what we really focus on when we talk to people, because all the time we've had together and the things that we've succeeded in, we've built probably 6 companies total. And there was one common denominator, and it was that we were doing it together.
Yeah.
And so with her always there, 22 years, we've been together 22 years. Cool. So, and it's not to say that the quantity of time matters as much as the quality of time, but when you have the quantity and the quality the whole time, that's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's always been that way. So when you were talking about the name, I laughed because the mentoring company that we have is called the Limitless Vitality Group, and I knew nothing about your company, and she came up with that name. So we were sitting there talking on the couch, and she's like, Limitless, and I'm like, I love that, and we like the idea of vitality because we want you to feel full of life. You know what I mean? And so same kind of concept, but we do it very not strictly, but we do it a lot with just the couplepreneurs, like people who are struggling to work together. So how would you say, and everything he's got going on, where do you think that you really play the biggest part in what he does on a day-to-day basis? Like, where is your stronghold within that partnership?
I would say, like, the most important thing is, and we've talked about all the time, is just like knowing what our roles are. And I'm not really hands-on with like what he's doing business-wise. Like, we don't really do like what you guys probably do together. But my job and my role is to be the mom right now is one of the most important things that I do. I take care of the house. I do everything that he can't do while he's working. He works all day long. And so I think the biggest thing for me is knowing what my role is and taking care of that aspect so that he doesn't have to have that stress on top of, work. And when he can be done with work, he can come out and enjoy family time and everything's good to go. And there's not all this extra stuff going on that he needs to handle. Right.
Yeah, and there's things, and you might feel the same way I do. I've said there's parts of our life that she handles that I cannot do. Yeah. Like the stuff she does with the family and the nights with the babies and all that stuff. I've got too much going on during the day. I can't. She's got a conference coming up. It's actually Emily's that she's going to have in St. Louis, and she's going to be gone for like 3 nights.
First time ever.
I will probably have our nanny there a little bit because I'm really busy during the days, and I can't, you know what I mean? It's tough. I can't do it. You can call it a gender role, call it whatever you want, but that's just the fact of the matter is you guys handle things when you decide you want a family and you want this entrepreneurial journey together. Somebody's got to handle that side of it.
Well, because with the kids and stuff, they do dance. Ours are in dance, sports. I mean, so there is a lot of taking them and coming and going. And a lot of times Bobby like doesn't know their schedule. Yeah. I keep their schedule. And so
he has no idea. And plus with us having a blended family, we have kids going back and forth. I'm working with his ex-wife, my ex-husband, and so it's just
which is beautiful, by the way. I know you guys have a very good relationship with each other. I don't think that people put enough emphasis. You wrote a book about it. Yeah. They don't put enough emphasis on how strong that is to just be the person who's a little bit bigger in that situation and understand that there's a bigger purpose here than just what it is on its face, which is that animosity or hate or the stuff that just gets in the way. Yeah. To take that and for you guys to be bigger than that and say, you know what, we want you to be a part of the kids' family and our family, like you were telling me earlier. That's awesome. Yeah. That really is incredible. Kids.
Yeah.
You know,
100%. And it's also when you can learn that even through trials, tribulations, issues, chaos, just because something didn't work, it shouldn't not work for the rest of their lives, right? You see people who say or profess that they loved each other once. And I'm a firm believer that when you love someone, you love them forever and ever. Like you just do. If it's real love, you love them forever and ever. And we were even talking last night, like, I love my ex-wife. I will always love her. As the mother of my children, I'll always care about her. She'll always care about her ex-husband. He's the father of one of her children. And if you can create a conducive environment for your children to grow and learn and see, like, just because our parents didn't work out, like, they still have such a beautiful relationship. And that should carry over to everything. I was telling her last night, I said, don't you think it's so cool that my 2 daughters with my ex-wife will see from their father, it doesn't matter what a man wants from you, he should always treat you well, because dad always treated mom well, even after they were divorced. There's nothing that I want from her. There's nothing that I'm taking from her. We don't have a marriage anymore. We don't have any of those things, but I still treat her phenomenal. And my 2 daughters will be raised knowing, like, this is the lowest standard of what a man should be doing, because whether he wants something from me or not, I see how my father treats my mother, and it builds in them a character as for the standard of who they're going to one day marry, who they're going to start dating, who they're going to be friends with. Whereas most people, it's like, oh yeah, my parents, they can't talk. Every time they're around, it's toxic. It's horrible energy. They can't even be in the same room. That's such a horrible place. But how beautiful is it? Yesterday, we invited my ex-wife to come with us. We went up to the mountains in the helicopter. We had a beautiful, fun experience with my kids and our kids and all of this stuff. And it was just a great time. And you know, as my wife left, or my ex-wife left, I was like, thanks so much. I really appreciate you bringing the girls. I know today was their day with you. And it just meant a lot that we together as a family, because that's what we are, whether we want to accept that or not. Like, that's their family. They just are. Her ex-husband is part of my family because his daughter is my responsibility and my family. And in that, if I can cultivate this beautiful environment without this weird, toxic relationship, imagine what those kids can grow up and have and learn and even set as a standard for themselves. Like, if my daughters are in a relationship and their boyfriend isn't even treating them as well as their father treats his ex-wife, that's a standard that they're going to go, sorry, like, you're not even as good to me as my dad is to his ex-wife. This is not going to fly. So we build in them this beautiful foundation of a standard of excellence of what a man should be for a woman. And you know, we don't have any boys, so I can't say that the other way around, but
you will.
Yeah, one day we will, but that's why it's so crucial and so important. And that's what's just so valuable in the book that I wrote. One of the things that I taught was, because people ask, how do you do it? It's learning to govern yourself without emotion. Like, when you can pull emotion out of decision making and make decisions based on facts rather than on your feelings, you can always make the right decisions for yourself, for your spouse, for your ex-wife, for your kids. What is the best decision? You and I no longer work. This doesn't work. So to move forward in a great and beautiful and healthy relationship, what does that look like? Well, the only way for me to do that is to pull emotion from it, right? We had our differences, we had our things, it didn't work out, and there was a lot of emotion to it. There's a lot of emotion to divorce. But why should our children suffer because we are dictated by our emotions? It's not fair. So learning that if you really want to have beautiful relationships and you want to be a leader, like we were talking about before we started this podcast, you have to learn how to become predictable in all you do. And the only way to become predictable is to pull emotion out of decision making. Not saying you don't feel the emotion, because we all feel emotions, but if you can learn how to regulate yourself away from emotion into the best decision, you will always be successful. And the best part, you'll cultivate an environment of success for everybody around you, which for us is important. We got 5 girls.
Absolutely. That mindset right there, it pours into what you talked about earlier, is a leader, because you're leading this path into this better relationship between the dual families.
Absolutely.
How do you how does emotion play? Because, like, when I took this journey, she's always been a very like you talked about, a very logical person.
Right.
And so I'm more the emotional type. She's more the logical type. And that's just, I think by nature, a lot of men are emotional. Even what you're saying right now to me has emotion behind it.
Yeah.
Even if you take the emotion out of the situation, you're taking the hatred or the malice or whatever that was, that emotion is what you're taking out. So how is what his mindset been? Has that came over to you to cause you to kind of change the way that you do things? Does that rub off on you?
Yeah, we literally had this conversation last night because it's been a struggle for me, but I also learned from him. Like, he's the greatest teacher in that aspect of like shifting my mindset to seeing it that way versus seeing it in a negative light, because it can be difficult. It has been difficult for me, and so that's been something that he's helping me understand and play into that bigger picture of why we do what we do, and the importance of the effect it does have on the girls and our exes. Right. I mean, even like last night he was saying like he helps so many people, you know, all these random things throughout the year that he does, but why not help our exes, you know? And
Motion would be the only reason you wouldn't, right?
Yeah, and why not help the ones that we have children with? Why not do everything that we possibly can for them? And so he's been really good at teaching me how to navigate through, because I am more emotional, way more emotional than him, and so it is just navigating through that and learning in its process, and obviously being open-minded and trying to just always kind of be on that same page of where we go with that.
I gotcha. Yeah. So what's the big play? Have you guys ever talked about doing a joint venture together, just the two of you? I know not like maybe we do, like you said earlier, but like if you do all these different businesses and you've got, is there anything that you've looked at and be like, you know, at some point in time, if I have it, you've got a nanny, if you do, we do. Yeah. And you can free up a little bit of time. Is there like something that you're passionate about that you'd kind of like to get into?
I think eventually I would like to do something. I mean, before we were together, I was the one that worked. I was the one that made the money, and that was like, I find joy in that, and it gives me purpose. Right. And so I think that's been a struggle with being in this situation a little bit, because he is the one that makes the money, and I've had to solely, you know, step into mom, which I'm so grateful for. Like, I would not trade that for the world, because when I worked, I used to want to have that. Now I have it, and you miss that little bit of like, I need something else. Yeah. But I think it's a season of life, and we have kids, and for me, it's like that's what is most important, is that I get to be here for them in this time, and as they get older and we're done having kids and we can do something else. I mean, I would love to do something eventually, yeah.
I think also the one thing that we're going to be leaning into, and we haven't announced it yet, but I told you a little bit earlier before we started, was we're going to spend a lot of time doing marriage type masterminds, couples masterminds, and I think that's going to play a big role for her. I think she doesn't realize, I think, a lot of her power and her ability of what she's doing to learn and grow and be who she is and find the role and be that role. I think there's a lot of men and women who are lost in their marriages, in their work, in their family, where there aren't real roles dictated, and there should be, right? No matter what that is. And so for us, I think our joint venture is going to be after we're going to be doing a mastermind here at the house for couples specifically. That's awesome. Because it's the most important thing in the whole world. Like, there's nothing more important than your marriage.
That foundation.
Everything builds off. It's everything. I think after this first one, like, I think this is something we're really going to lean into, which is going to take her to this new level of like, there's a lot of women who are in a position where she's at and they're lost and they don't know what to do and how to do it and what role to fulfill, not fully understanding that when they fulfill their role, the husband that they have will fulfill his role even better. And they both are fulfilling this role for one purpose, which is success and happiness and peace and love and all the things that we long for. But it takes two people in a specific role. It's the same thing in a company, right? I have a CEO and a CFO and a COO. They're all different roles, but if each one of those roles are fulfilled perfectly, then the company itself does better. But if you have a CFO trying to be the CEO or the CEO trying to do the CFO work, then you've got this weird problem, and it's not going to be as successful as it should. And that's what a marriage is. There are distinct roles. There just are. And the more that you lean into those roles and fulfill those roles and then support one another in those roles, you both do better. I mean, I played football for the longest time. The last person on the field to get any credit is the offensive line. They just always are. Like the quarterback can only do so well as long as he's protected. The running back can only go so far as long as the offensive line is opening up the holes. If I was an offensive lineman looking to take the credit of the quarterback, or pissed that I wasn't getting the credit as the running back, or pissed that I didn't have any touchdowns, I would never fulfill my role of what I need to do for the team overall. And that's the best part, is a man or a woman can only go so far on their own. They just can. But when two people come together and start really playing as a team, that team is unstoppable. And they accomplish everything. And it's so beautiful when you look around and you're like, gosh, she's crushed it in her role as a mother and as my support and as my side, like everything. And now we're crushing across the board. Our family is happy. We're healthy. The energy in the home is good. The home is clean. The money is there. The time is there. All of the things we long for are now here, because as a team, we're each fulfilling our roles. And I think a lot of people lack that. That's one of the reasons why I'm leaning so hard now as of these last couple of weeks, is like, we need to show the world that the most important thing is marriage and the family unit. And there's not a lot of people that are doing that. Right. And so we should step up and help and fulfill that role. I know thousands of women that look up to her, that would love to hear from her in the mastermind, in the coaching, saying, how do you do what you do? And really, is it everything that I'm thinking it is, you know? And it's like, yeah, it really is. Like our conversation last night, I was like, isn't it so beautiful that today we woke up, we had time with our family, we flew in a helicopter, we went up, we had some time with our ex, we had some time with our children, we did all of these wonderful things, and then we get to end the day in our mansion on the hill with a sauna and an ice bath and go to bed and have a wonderful night. Like, that's what everybody wants. But to get there, it takes very specific roles that if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. If she didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. But we're doing it together, and now our team is just flourishing and seeing all the success that we have ever dreamed of.
But what's funny is, like, a driven individual, and it's hard for even a spouse to be with a driven individual. So to some degree, you have to be a bit driven yourself, because to even be in that coupling, you know, you have to be able
100%.
to understand what he's going through some days, even when he can't express it to you, right?
Yeah.
And so even though you've made it to it in most people's minds, you still are looking to further your agenda. Yeah. You're like, what's next?
Always.
Right?
Yeah. He literally always has just the most extreme, way far out there goals. And he always does it. Yeah. We always get there.
And it wouldn't be able to happen if we didn't have what we have as a team.
An understanding of that's what he wants to do.
Yes.
And be on board, like knowing like that this is what we signed up for.
Right.
And
it's different.
And you say like I'm really driven, but without a driven spouse, there's no way. There's no way.
Right. Yeah.
Like if I had a wife that was like, I want to sit on the couch and eat bonbons and just enjoy all the money, like this would not work. It would not work.
She always told you that that's a bad idea. That's not going to work.
Yeah. If she was always a voice of negativity.
Yes.
One of my favorite things to think and picture is that you know, we're a king and queen, and this is our kingdom, right? And the king goes out and conquers and does all of the things that he does. He puts on his armor, he puts on his shit, and he goes out and he conquers. If he's not able to come home and take that armor off and feel a place of peace in his kingdom, he can't continually do what a king is supposed to do. And without a queen, he's not able to have that peace and that rest and that happiness, plain and simple. And as soon as you really understand those types of roles, like it becomes really, really powerful for both individuals. She doesn't question where the money's going to be. I don't question where the organization of our family is going to be. She doesn't question about what I'm doing and the responsibilities that I take on. And I don't question the things she's doing and the responsibilities that she takes on, because each one of us fulfill those roles, and it's both people driven as shit. Because if she wasn't driven, there's no way it just wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't.
And she brings to me what no one else can bring, and allows me to do what I otherwise could never be able to do.
If you were talking to a couple and the wife was like, I just don't really feel like I want what he wants, do you think that's something that just is innate, or something that can be kind of infected into you?
I think I was listening to a podcast about this. I think it was Alex Hermosi was talking about. He's like, for specifically people that are dating, like if you're dating somebody and it's your first date and you're talking and you have these non-negotiables, that probably being one, if you are a driven person and you do have these extravagant goals, then, and they're not on the same page, then it's not worth it. And don't ask that person to change. Like, don't ask them to change. You want to find someone that wants what you want, and not have this resentment that gets built over time, signing up for that together. Because it's like, if I was to come in and he wanted to do all this and I was like, I'm not really into it, over time that builds resentment and causes issues down the road. Whereas if from the get-go you find somebody that's like, yes, a non-negotiable, I want kids, cool, like this is gonna work. You don't want kids, this isn't gonna work.
I think a key thing is that you kind of knew who he was probably before you guys get together, so you attracted the kind of person that would be that way, just like you talked about earlier with being a good leader and attracting the right employees. And you attracted the right spouse. She already knew what she was kind of getting into.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing is, like, you know, I said, and it's Jim Rohn that essentially said, it's one of my favorite sayings, is you must stop pursuing that what you want and start attracting it. And you do it by becoming attractive to it. And I became attractive to her and attracted her, and she became attractive to me and attracted me, and we together are essentially attracting everything that we want in this life. And it's really hard if you get into a relationship where you don't have that, you know, where two people are becoming their greatest selves, and their greatest selves are a very attractive self, and they're attracting one another, and they're attracting all the things that they seek together rather than pursuing them. That's when true success is actually formed.
Right.
And then we find too that the more like Bobby does, like we push each other. Yeah. Like the more he does and the more I'm going to do, like you almost become a little bit competitive with it.
In a good way.
In a good way.
In a great way. And
yes, because it helps you grow.
Competition is great.
I mean, it's a laugh, like you look at each other and smile and you're like, okay.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Like, Bobby's like, I'm going to go to this conference in Arizona. And he's like, you know, we can't all go because the kids and everything, they all have lots going on and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to go. So then I find this one in St. Louis, then I'm going to go to. And I want to grow and I want to do it also. But I also want him to kind of be at home a little bit and to see what it's like sometimes with the kids and how my day-to-day goes. I go into the office usually like 2 to 3 days a week. And then I do a couple days at home with the kids because that time is so limited and they're growing up so fast. And so I don't want to miss anything. And I was a teacher for 10 years, elementary and special education. And so when I resigned, it was hard to find my purpose at home because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, being home all the time and stuff. And then
But you love being a mother there.
Love being a mom.
Absolutely.
And so then once I was able to do it though, and be at home and really develop the kids and help them grow and everything, I absolutely love it. And so I wouldn't change that for the world, but I do like getting back out into the workforce and doing some of that. So I do think your time will come, but it's one of those things when you are able to be home and stuff, you don't push it and you don't wish it away, but you are. So I also was able to help you behind the scenes and stuff like that.
She definitely
for a long time
was a catalyst to being able to push even further than I would have been able to do otherwise. And I think it was, Alex might have too, but Leela had talked about how she was with somebody that wasn't her person. And they talked and they wanted two totally different things. And even though they really cared for each other, they said, this just is never going to work. Yeah. So, and then I think that's hard. And then you're probably going to talk to people. And we talk to people at times where we sit down and after we talk to them, I'm like, I don't know if it's just easier to guide you both to the answer or to just say it out loud, but somebody needs to say something here. You guys are going to have a hard reality here real quick that if she absolutely is not on the page that you're on and you can't find common ground, there's another conversation that you need to have.
Which is a really hard conversation. I've had that conversation a few times, and I know I remember the conversation vividly because it's a hard conversation. I've been in plenty one-on-one mentoring sessions. I've been in group sessions. I've been at events where I've spoken and had people ask the question. And the answer is, that's not your person and you guys shouldn't be together. And I know that's really hard, especially when you're talking about a marriage. I've told probably 3 or 4 people, I don't think that you're in the right relationship. And I know that's really hard for you to hear, but the truth is that your growth is on the other side of that relationship. And until you accept and realize that, you're going to be stunted and you're going to continue to live in this mediocre or chaos that you don't want to be in. You know, and that's a hard conversation, but that's what it takes.
And we've had people before even tell us, I've gotten divorced before, so if she doesn't work out, if she doesn't want what I want later, we'll just get divorced. And I'm like,
which is not a good way to
can't
look
believe
at
you
it.
went
Yeah,
into
that's
that
not a
way.
good. That's not a good way.
Yeah, I'm like, that's the way you look at everything.
Yeah.
Like, this life's full of options. And
Yes.
because to me, like we talked about earlier, time is so, I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah.
I want everything to be very intentional. I want it to be very purposeful. I want to love what I'm doing. I want to love who I'm doing it with. And I've had a lot of people, not a lot, I'd say I've had a couple that I can think of that have literally said, I don't want to have wasted the last 15 years. The fact of the matter is, you might have.
Yeah.
You might have wasted the last 15
Yeah.
years. Not wasted. I think that you need to look at the silver lining of what you learned from that.
Yeah.
So and if you had kids together, you absolutely did not waste that time.
Yeah.
Something beautiful came out of my parents struggled with that.
Yeah.
I think there was a hatred there. They didn't have this, what you guys have with yours. And so the later part of our life, we spent listening to the negativity that they had against their ex-spouse.
Yeah.
And that just rubbed off on us. It was just like, oh, they hate her. It's just this toxic.
Yeah.
And then when you get into a relationship, you don't want to think that's okay. And as a kid, when you watch that kind of stuff, just what that person said, well, if this doesn't work out, no, you don't enter it then.
Yeah.
But you guys have created such like a safe space even for your girls and
Yeah.
stuff, because they at least will never have that anxiety to where I can't, dad won't want to hear this or mom's not going to want to hear this. I mean, what a safe area.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Which is ultimately our whole purpose. Is
Mhm.
our purpose as parents is to teach and build
Mhm.
a platform on which they can build themselves. And without that platform, then you don't know what they're going to build, and you don't know where they're going to go, and you don't know what kind of issues they're going to have.
Right.
Our job as their parents is to build a platform in which they can build their own lives,
Mhm.
everything that they want. And you can't do that when ultimately you're in chaos, you're building chaos, you're
Mhm.
building negative energy, you're doing all of these things, and you're putting it all into them.
Right.
They're going to spend the next 20 years just trying to get rid of all of that
Yeah.
shit.
If
And-
they're smart enough to
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or like if they're taught to shake it. Otherwise, they're just
Yeah.
going to think that's what it is.
And you talk about it being a wasted time. The truth is, the only time it's wasted is when you didn't learn from it.
Right.
My previous marriage and her previous marriage was not a waste of time, because it taught us what we truly wanted, and we learned what we truly needed to learn to now have a relationship that is so exponentially better
Right.
across the board.
Mhm.
There's no way it was a waste. It set us up for the most successful thing that we ever wanted, which was a beautiful home and a beautiful marriage and a beautiful family.
Mhm.
So I would never. I had my friend the other day ask me, do you regret anything? And I said, no, I don't have any regret. And he's like, I think that's crazy to say you don't have any regret. And I said, dude, where I am today,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been here if I hadn't had the past that I had. So if I said if I was going to go back, I may not be where I am today.
It's the ripple effect.
And
It
where I
changes
am
everything.
today is
the butterfly
exactly
effect.
where I want to be.
Right.
So no, it wasn't a waste, and I don't regret any of it.
Well, I know you're a religious guy. Do you
Mhm.
guys share the same religious foundation,
Mhm.
same religious background? So you understand that faith guides you sometimes in a way that we try to find answers that aren't always what we want to hear.
Yeah.
But if we really listen to the whole message, we understand maybe even later down the road, like, that's probably what that was for.
Yeah.
So how much of that plays a part in what you guys do with your family and how you run your businesses and how you run when you talk to somebody? Do you kind of infect them with that moral
Yeah,
belief too?
everything I do is based on my core, on what I believe as my core. And I do this a lot with people. And I don't know how your viewers are. We got a right to swear?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's just
Be real.
Yeah,
If you're real,
getting
be
this
real.
point across, you do have to
Absolutely.
kind of swear. But my good friend wrote a song, and in the song, and it's the reason I love the song, he says, look at yourself in the mirror and tell me who the fuck you are. And I've realized 99% of the people don't know who they really are. And you can't know who you are when you don't really know what you believe, right? And that's everything. Your belief in God, in the universe, in all of those things. And, we both believe very, very much so that God is our Father and that we are his children. And if we're his children, we're heir to him. And if I'm heir to a God, that would mean I'm limitless.
Mhm.
I have
Right.
every opportunity to do and be whatever I want. If he created it, I could create it. Everything that we do is based on those core principles. And when I tell you to look at yourself in the mirror and say who the fuck you are, if you don't know your core, if you don't know who you are, you can't really build anything because everything is built on your own foundation of reality of what you believe, right?
Right.
And I tell people this often. When I look at somebody who wants to become a better leader, I ask them a very simple question. What are your core values, right? And I have them list out their core values. What do you believe? What are your core values? And then I make them literally list them out.
Sure.
And I say, draw a line down that page. And that line I want you to label, and I want you to ask the question, what am I willing to die for? And I make them go back to their core values. And I make them question, is that something I'm willing to die for? Now, when I did this exercise, I wrote all kinds of stuff, right? I want to have honor and integrity. I want to have a beautiful marriage. My core value is that I believe in God. One of my core values was I want to be good to other people and I want to take care of other people. Well, when I do this exercise and I ask the question, am I willing to die to be good to other people, or am I willing to die to take care of other people? Now, if you did this on the surface and you didn't really go deep with it, what do you think the answer is?
On the surface, I think people, I don't know. See, me personally, if you just asked me, I would say no.
Yeah.
And the reason I would say no is because to do that, now I sacrifice myself for my family.
Exactly. And
my
that's
family
the
I
right
would
answer.
die for.
That's the right answer. So for me, I said, am I willing to leave my wife spouseless and my children fatherless to take care of other people? The answer was no.
Right.
Right.
Not even a little
Was it
bit.
a core value then?
Yeah. So then I ask the question and then I cross it out, right? And then I build what's the most important thing that a human being can build, which is ethos. And my core values, they're great. They sound wonderful and I think they're real. And most people live in this reality where they have core values. They don't really know. But when you ask that question, you begin to get rid of your core values and you build what your ethos is. And for those people who are listening, don't know what an ethos is, it's really simple. An ethos is a guiding belief. It's what guides me in my decision making, in my actions. It really guides me. Mm-hmm. And when I build an ethos, I no longer question decisions that I make. I no longer take a long time to make decisions. Because if I were faced with a decision to either die or take care of people, I would say, well, shoot, I really want to take care of people. But the answer is I'm not willing to leave her and my children to take care of other people. So that's a very firm no. So the time it takes to make a decision is really shortened. One of my really good friends, Cody Sanchez, always talks about this. She says, if I took an entrepreneur to dinner and I handed them a menu, I know how successful they're going to be by how long it takes for them to order off of the menu. What she's talking about is the time that it takes to make a decision, right? Most people take forever to make decisions. They just do. And then they're never successful. True success comes when you're able to make a decision, no matter what it is. Even if it's right or wrong, you make a decision, right? Yep. When you find out what your ethos is, your time to make a decision gets shortened really small. And then you make decisions the way you should. And here we are talking about I make mistakes. Well, that's okay. Mm-hmm. As long as the next decision fixes the mistake and the next decision gets better and the next decision gets better. But if you're 100 decisions away from success and I'm 100 decisions away from success, I'm going to be more successful than you because I'm going to make those decisions like that. A man or a woman who doesn't have an ethos doesn't know who the fuck they are. Right. And they can't make the decisions that they need to make to find the success that they seek, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. So for me, my biggest thing for everybody is based on you need to find out who you are. You need to build your ethos. And guess how you have to do that? You have to come to a realization that there's either a God or there isn't a God. You have to get off the fence. And most people are on the fence. Mm-hmm. Even Christ spoke. He said, I would prefer you were hot or you were cold. I hate lukewarm. He said, I would spit lukewarm out of my mouth. I would prefer you're all in no matter what. I sat here a week ago with a young man. And I asked him the question, do you believe in God? And he said, no, I don't think I do. I said, you don't think or you are sure? I said, I don't care if your answer is I don't believe in God, as long as that's what you're sure of. You either believe in him or you don't. So you go back to that question of like, how has faith played a role? Mm-hmm. It's everything. Mm-hmm. We all are the sum total of our decisions. What you're wearing today was your decision. Who you are today, the muscle you have, the wife you have, the kids you have were decisions that you made. Everything in your life is the sum total of your decision making. Well, if the platform on which I build decisions is based on if I even know who I am, then everything changes when I solidify that. And the very beginning of solidifying who you are in this world, in this universe is there a God or isn't there a God? And as soon as I come to a realization that I know, you could put a gun to my head and say, do you believe there's a God? If you do, I'm shooting you. My answer would be, yes, I do. Shoot away. I know with a surety there is. I know that he's my father. I know that we're his children. And I know every single thing I do is based on those principles. When I build my companies, when I build my family, when I build my marriage, it's all based around that platform on which I am. And that's how I do everything, because I know exactly who I am. A lot of times we get into a place where we have to make a decision, and I make a decision quickly sometimes, and she's like, oh, are we sure that's the right decision?
I'm the same way.
But because I know who I am, it's not a question.
Where
it's
did
not a
this
time.
self-awareness come from, though? Like, how did you become so confident in and build yourself to be like this?
So this is the answer that I give to everybody when they seek true success.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts with your desire to progress personal development. Like, you should put money into two things.
Sure.
Yourself and your business.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, and when I say put money into yourself, I mean develop yourself, right? The more I become confident, the more I'm able to make decisions. The more I get into good shape, the better I feel, the more decisions I make based on good feelings. Everything is based around personal development. Again, you go back to, well, what do I believe? Well, I believe that I'm the son of a God, and I believe I'm supposed to become like him, which means I must progress from the current state I am to where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's all based around progression and personal development, which is why mentoring and having a mentor is so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Find someone who is farther along the road than you, who have developed every aspect that you want to have, and ask them to show you how. So when a billionaire comes to me and says, how do I get my marriage better? How do I get this better? How do I say,
He's
you
willing to trade what like, I need this amount of commitment
Mhm.
for your knowledge.
Exactly.
There's the transition, and the bigger the transition, the bigger the problem, the bigger money that changes hands, and that's just that's what everybody goes back to.
Yeah.
And it just bothers me that everybody goes back to that, because I'm like, at the end of the day, can you really put a value on what I taught you? If I teach you how to have a very healthy marriage with healthy boundaries, that's loving and flourishes and pours into your kids and all that, and you don't have any of that, and you desire that, you can put a dollar amount on that?
There's no way.
How?
Dude, that's one of the first questions I ask people. I say, because I say, hey, if you want to mentor with me, it's X amount.
Right.
All right, let's just say it's $100,000. If I can show you how to make $1 million and become a better husband, a better father, and a better leader, is it worth $100,000?
Oh, Keaton, can you guarantee me?
And that's where I go back to, yeah, I absolutely can guarantee you that I can show you how, but I can't guarantee that you'll do it.
Right.
Correct.
But if you pay the money, you sure as shit are going to do it. That's why you go
Right.
back to that
Correct.
thought of, when you invest in yourself, you commit your own self.
Yeah.
I'm not spending this money and wasting this money. I'm doing what he says I should be doing.
Yeah.
That's ultimately it. So you ask that question, like, where did this come from? It came from this desire that I want to become like my father.
Mm-hmm.
My God,
Mm-hmm.
I want to get better. The person I am today is so much better than the person I was last year, and the person 10 years ago. And the person I'll be in 10 years will be so much better than I am today. And that person will have better marriage, more money, more success, be a better leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm obsessed with personal development, because that is the actual denominator, the common denominator to success across the board. Everybody's looking for all these ideas and all these thoughts and the people and the things, when it's you.
Right.
You are the one that makes the money and creates the relationship and creates the power and do all the. So if you're the one, then you should focus on that, and that's you. And as soon as you flip that script, it's not what's happening
Mm-hmm.
around me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I fix me and I progress me and I become the greatest version of me, success is just a byproduct of
Inevitable.
that.
Right.
I mean, and when I took that journey, it's funny. I love that you get to tell her this, because this is the same conversation I've had
Yeah.
with her. But it's great to hear it from somebody in Salt Lake City, 1,000 whatever miles from our house,
Yeah.
because I came to the realization one day, I woke up and shit was just different.
Yeah.
Like, I just woke up and it was different. That day felt different. I felt different. I was 300 pounds. I was unhappy. We were successful in business, but I was miserable. My marriage was wonderful. Kids are wonderful. I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I said,
So then, how great can everything be?
so
though?
how great can
you know
everything
what
be?
I mean?
And I
Yeah.
said, if I'm pissing and moaning about this and that, what's the one thing that I can change that dictates everything around me? Well, I'll change me.
Yeah.
Okay, like you said earlier, look in the mirror and say, you're the fucking problem.
Yeah.
You're the problem.
100%.
Okay, so I started that journey, and it got complicated at times, because they're like, Like, you're doing a lot and you're moving really fast, and I'm afraid you're going to leave us behind. I said, no, 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 no. When I become the greatest version of me, you all benefit from it.
Yeah.
I'm a better father when I'm more present for them, which means I'm going to have to make a little less money right now because I got to pay people to do the jobs I was doing.
Yeah.
I live longer to walk my daughters down the aisle, to see my son do great things because I got in shape and I'm healthier now.
Yeah.
You know, it's me being the best version of myself. So when you talk about spending money or you talk about spending time or whatever, if there's anything in this world that is going to move that metric quicker than anything, it's investing in yourself.
Absolutely.
In every aspect of your
Every
life.
aspect. And that's really what dictates how much success you have. Because is there like an end goal? No. The goal is progression, and the goal is progression of self. And the more that I become closer to the greatest version of me, the more success I will continue to see. If I want to make more money, I've got to change me. I tell people often, like, if you want to become a millionaire, you have to become the millionaire first, and then he makes the million. If you want to have a better marriage, you have to become the better marriage that creates the better marriage. If you want to be a better leader, you have to become the better leader that then makes the decisions as a leader to be that leader across the board. And I've just become obsessed with the progression of self because I know that the outcome is everything that I've ever wanted. Rather than seeking to make more money, what must I do internally to make more money? Right. If I want to have a better team in one of my businesses, I must lead them. Well, how do I do that? I must become a better leader, and they will follow. And the answer across the board is the greater I become, the more success I see.
And so did you just reach a season in your life where you're like, I am now going to take this to everybody else? And then you were just like, that's wonderful. This is what we're going to name it. Yeah. And you guys just said, let's go. And so where is that journey taking you in the last 2 years? Like, from its inception, like, let's not talk about how many people are in it, but let's talk about the lives that you've impacted and changed. Like, because every one of those stories that comes back is fuel on that fire of the more that you want to do. And selfishly, because it is selfish for us because of what we feel internally by doing that. But I came to the realization that I'm okay with that. I'm okay with giving to somebody because it makes me feel okay, because it helped them and it made me feel okay. Yeah. So did I do it because I wanted to feel good? Yeah, but if feeling good wasn't something that I desired, I never would have helped. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So for you, how has that been, like, as an evolving mindset? Because you've already shifted, but as that's growing and you're surrounding yourself with more people, and like you talked about Ed Millett earlier, you delivered him an awesome present today, and that you've got this relationship with him, and yeah, you had to trade money for that, but you know what? That was the foot to get in the door, and then the rest of it blossoms from that. Because then I tell people, the guy I was before, people listened to me, but they never saw me. Yeah. I had to become somebody that people saw, then they listened to me. Yeah. Now they see me, and now they start listening. Yeah. And it's not that I'm just want to have a big ego or anything. It's just like, I've got something to help you with. I got something to tell you. I just need you to listen to what I'm saying, because before you're like, this guy doesn't even look like he takes himself seriously. Yeah. So what do I care? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So for you, as you evolve in this, how does this kind of help you guys in your relationship and help you with everybody that you're working with? Because now, like you just talked about earlier, you want to bring this into marriages. Well,
I think the answer, especially for men, is men want to feel purpose. Everybody wants to feel important. That's the universal law. The book How to Win Friends and Influence People tells that there's one universal law that everybody wants, right? And everybody always thinks it's money. It's not money. It's to feel important, right? Like that's why Warren Buffett makes more money, because the more money he makes, the more important he feels, right? So for me, I've realized, like, I can build companies, I can make money, but there's no true purpose in that for me anymore. There's not. My purpose is to affect the lives of those people that I can affect, whoever that is. Mm-hmm. So when we started down this and we started this path and I started mentoring, like, it was great, right? You see money and you see success, but there is nothing in the world that can fill the void of purpose like having someone come to you and say, what you taught has changed everything for me. It's changed my marriage. It's changed my children. It's changed my family. It's changed everything for me. Ed Millett talks about you should become the one in your generation that changes everything, right?
Yep.
And I don't know if there's a greater purpose for a human being to, number one, change themselves, and then to help other people change. So in succession, it's first you must change yourself, and then when you get there, you should help other people. And that's when you find true purpose. And a man with true purpose has the only thing that all of us seek. And everybody thinks that's happiness. It's not happiness. It's peace. I can be in a tornado and still feel peace. I can be in chaos and still feel peace. I can be in the craziest circumstances and environment and still feel peace, because my purpose is being fulfilled. And it's crazy to see what a man or a woman can do when they feel purpose. Mm-hmm. They can accomplish the craziest shit in the world and stay true to a course that otherwise everybody and themselves would have given up if they didn't have that purpose. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing. So for us, as we see, like, we get to see messages every day. We get to have people come into our home that are like in tears. You changed everything in my life. And for me, it's like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm going to continue to go so hard in showing people what their capabilities are, because not all of them, but a lot of them will grasp this and it will pivot their lives. And the most beautiful thing, it's going to pivot their marriage. It's going to pivot their children's lives. It's going to pivot their grandchildren's lives, and so on, because they decided to become the one, like Ed Milet talks about. And I don't think that there's a greater purpose. I really don't. And when I saw that and I felt it and I heard it, it was like, oh yeah, this is fuel to my fire.
Absolutely. And what's that mean to you?
It's cool to sit back, because in him coaching and doing this, he's also changed, which I've got to witness even just over the last 2 years. Has been, even our marriage has been significantly getting better with him coaching. So it's kind of cool to like see that go.
It's like therapy almost.
Yeah, it's like full circle. You're coaching and then you're bringing that to me and us, and it just it's beautiful.
Because awesome. I even know with you, sometimes you would read things and then he's like, he wouldn't tell me he's trying it, but we might get into a disagreement and he's like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this practice and see if it works, you know, and see what kind of reaction he gets out of me. And a lot of times it's made huge differences.
And then later I'd go back and I'd be like, so I tried this technique. And just so you know, like, take for instance, one of the early on ones, the catalyst that changed, one of the biggest things we talk about is communication. Communication's massive in a relationship. It's one of the basic things people are like, oh yeah, it's communication so much more than talking. But anyway, I told her she's the one person in this world that can either send me to the moon or pull me off a ledge, like that. Either way, it's up to her. She dictates that depending on how I come in the situation, how she reacts to that situation. I'm not saying it's her responsibility, but I'm saying she's the one person that can do that. So when I had a conversation with her one day, I was super stressed out about some business stuff years ago. And I was kind of coming unraveled a bit. She was not really helping the situation. And finally, I just had this realization that I'm just going to express that to her. So I expressed it to her very tearfully. I expressed this to her. The next time a situation like that happened and I'm coming undone, it might only been a week later, she listened to everything I had to say and she said, how can I help you? And when all that was done, I went back to her and I said, I want you to understand that I seen you do that, and I want you to know that I seen it. I know that you purposely, you heard me. Our whole line of communication changed after that. The way we communicate with each other, the way that we recognize when somebody's a little bit tighter situation than the other one, and for that day, like I told somebody the other day, I'd have a breakdown and this going on and these problems, and I'd come into the room and she's running into all her issues because her father passed away a couple of years ago and they struggled with his slow death for the most part for a long time. And so, you know, I come in with all these problems, and then I said, well, how was your day? And she's like, well, you know, Dad's really going downhill quick, and I don't know if he's going to make it through the week. My shit doesn't matter no more.
Yeah.
Right.
It's way, how can I help you? And then later on, she's like, so what'd you have going on? I'm like, I didn't have nothing going on today.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything going on. You know what I mean? It didn't matter. It was insignificant. So, but people have a hard time putting themselves second.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just crazy that I love hearing this from other people. I do, especially people that are in the same path. I mean, you guys are doing things on a lot bigger level than we're doing right now, but one day I'll be there, and probably sooner than later, because I'm pushing pretty hard and she's right behind me shoving. So, and we've got a big message we want to bring to people, and just to kind of close it up, is there anything that you guys would like people to know other than we're going to promote Limitless Society? Obviously, people need, if you guys don't know who Keaton Hoskins is in the Limitless Society, you guys need to go check him out on Instagram. You need to check him out on YouTube. He has an awesome message. This is something that I think everybody in this world needs, period. Whether you think you do or not, you should at least check it out because you do need it. Find people that you resonate with. Find people that are doing things that you want to do or places that you want to be in their marriages, in their businesses, with their family. When you put all those pieces into that fold, there's what, 7-9 billion people in this world.
Yeah.
You don't think you're going to find more than you can handle that relate to what you have going on, but you have to seek them out. It's not just going to fall in your lap. So go check it out. But what's one thing that you would tell people that you think is, I don't want to say the most important, but very important when it comes to working together in business and having a family and keeping that balance, as we talked about earlier, rather it be, because it's never an equal balance, but keeping that spice in your marriage, keeping that loving relationship, watching sunsets with your daughter, you know what I mean? And the trips up to the snow when it's 96 degrees outside, keeping that and being a leader in your businesses and being like, what's one of the most important things that you would tell somebody that they need to focus on out of the gate to be successful in doing that?
I'll let you answer first.
Oh gosh, you answer first. I gotta think.
So mine would be actually what you just talked about with her. One of the principles that I live and die by is a really simple phrase, and it's true perspective breeds discipline. And what that really means is if you seek to do something, you must be disciplined enough to do it. And to be able to build discipline, you have to find true perspective first. About 6 months ago, I had a guy come to ask me for help, to mentor, and every single person that I meet with, I ask them, the very first question I ask them is, how do you rate your marriage? That's the first question, because I think that's the most valuable piece in anybody finding success. And he skimmed over it, and he kept going back to, well, yeah, but I need to build my business. I need to be more successful in my business. I'm trying to make more money. You know, like, yeah, we can talk about marriage, but I don't want, like, let's go over my business. And every week we met, it was always the same thing. He wanted to go over business and business and business. And every time we met, I kept drawing him back to your marriage, right? And then about 4 months in, he called me. And I FaceTime or I meet with people in person because I like to be able to see your face when we talk. And I answered the phone, and he was in tears, just in tears. And he said, hey, I'm ready to have the conversation that you've been trying to have with me. And I said, well, what's going on? He said, well, my wife was having some stomach issues, so we went into the doctor, and we found out that she has cancer, and they told her she has 90 days to live. 90 days. And he bawled. And he was like, Keaton, all I've been doing is talking to you about building my business and making more money, and now I'm at a place where I have this much time left with my spouse. What in the world was I doing? I'm so disappointed that I didn't listen. And I said, okay, so now what will you do? And he said, well, I only have so much time left, so I'm going to put it into the thing that's most important. And I said, well, what does that mean, you know? And he listed off. He had a whole list actually in front of him, things I'm going to do with my spouse. And it was beautiful to hear. Like I'm dedicating time to my spouse. I'm dedicating time to my family. He's older, and his children have moved out of the house. And I said, well, so what all are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to spend my time with my spouse. That's what I'm going to do. I have 90 days left, right? And every week following, every time I spoke with him, his business just happened to get better. Mm-hmm. His money that he was making he was making more money. He was spending less time working, but he was spending more time with his wife. He was actually, and he was making good money. You know, he's making a few $1 million a year, and he was spending his money on his time with his spouse. And last time we spoke, about a month and a half ago, I said, where are you at, dude? He's like, we're in Australia. I flew my wife and my daughters to the Taylor Swift concert. Awesome. She's here in a wheelchair, you know, and I'm just enjoying this time, you know. And I realized that perspective is what actually breeds discipline, and the discipline that we need to become successful. Most of us don't realize that if we would put ourselves in true perspective, we would actually make the decisions we need to make to have what we want to have, right? And you've talked about this. The reason you lost weight was because one day you want to have the time with your daughter, walking her down the aisle. One day you want to spend time with your grandchildren, and you don't want to be in a wheelchair. You don't want to be the fat grandpa that can't get up and play baseball with his grandkids, right?
Right.
But here's the problem. Most people don't catch that. And then when they do, it's too late. They're sick, they're tired, and they're dying, and there's 90 days left. And then all of a sudden, the perspective they should have had comes to fruition.
It's the deathbed, I'm sorry.
Exactly, the deathbed, I'm sorry. And all of a sudden, they live the life in the last 90 days that they should have been living their entire life. So my message, and the thing that I wish to portray the most to people, is find whatever it is that puts you in the right perspective. That perspective will breed the discipline that you need. You sit and you fight with your wife about stupid shit, but what if she had 90 days left? Would you do that? You forget about your wife, and you forget about your sex life, and you forget about all the most important things because you just think you're going to have it forever and ever and ever, and you're not.
Right.
And if you could gain perspective, you would shift everything that you're doing, what you say, how you do it, how you act. And those are the things that it takes for you to become successful in the first place. And so one of my favorite teachers, philosophers, if you will, is Marcus Aurelius. And Marcus Aurelius spoke on this exact subject. He said that a man or a woman should contemplate death on a regular basis. He said daily. And I would take that a step further and say you should contemplate death of self and of those you love. And so I do that often. You know, again, my father, he passed away at 47 years old. So for me at 21, I had no choice but to be put into a perspective that, like, well, this life actually isn't very long. And so every decision I make must be based around, maybe I'm only going to live to 47. That's only 10 years from now.
Right.
So in 10 years, what am I going to do? And every day without fail, at least once, I contemplate my own death. I contemplate the death of my spouse. I think about the death of my children. And it puts me in the right perspective to stay disciplined, to do and be what I must to find success in that relationship, in that business, in that marriage. So for me, I tell people all the time, you don't learn anything else from me. Learn that you should find perspective. And most of the time that's in death. It's in the thought of death. That's why so many people at the end of their life decide to lose weight. They've lived their whole life in this shithole body, and the body's like, hey, we're done. We can't keep living like this. You went to the doctor, you have diabetes, you have high blood pressure, the doctor's telling you you're going to die. And then what do? They shift and they change their body and they get in better shape, and the quality of their life, their relationships, everything gets better because they were forced into the perspective. But what if we could put ourselves in the perspective without being forced there?
Yeah.
And what does it take to get there? For me personally, I think it's the contemplation of death.
Yeah.
And when you do that and you wake up every morning and I think, what if today's the last day? How will we interact? What if today's the last day with my children? How will I treat them? It forces me to be disciplined in that which I seek to have, whether it's for a day, a month, a year, 10 years. I don't know how long we have. So my advice for people is simple now. You should do whatever it takes to find true perspective, because that true perspective will breed the discipline that you need to become successful across the board. You'll have a better marriage. You'll be a better father. You'll be a better mother. You'll be a better business partner. You'll do better business. And then at that point, all of a sudden you're like, why is everything working so well? Oh shit, it's because I'm staying disciplined to my perspective in which I don't have that much time left. It's one of the reasons I have an hourglass there on my table.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if I could go back, or when I go back and I meet God, I'm going to say, hey, I think you did everything right, but there's one thing I think you should change. I think you should put one of those on everybody's shoulder. Everybody should be able to see how much time they have left. So when they're sitting on the couch, when they're arguing with their spouse, when they're not paying attention and time with their children, they got to look at that time running out. And that time should give them the perspective that maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should do something better. And just like this guy that I mentor now, I don't know how much longer his wife has, but I guarantee you the discipline of who he is as a husband right now is better than it's ever been in the 60 years that he's been on this earth.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then all I need to do is simple. I need to push into people perspective. And in that perspective, they'll always make better decisions. They just will.
Isn't it crazy how the contemplation of death, which is the finality of end, we don't have another day, you don't have another hour, you don't have another chance, is the catalyst to make people change.
Always.
Or to start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I say,
Live
they
like
say,
you're dying.
well, yeah, live like you're dying. They say, well, tomorrow or maybe later.
Yeah.
What if there isn't a maybe
What
later?
if there isn't?
Yeah.
You're not guaranteed tomorrow. I'm guaranteed nothing. I'm here right now. But I don't know that I'll be here after I leave. I could get in a car accident down here at the stoplight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't know. So you have to live everything like that.
But that's what's so beautiful. You say it makes me sad, but it
does,
shouldn't.
I know.
It should bring joy. You know why? Because that's what's so beautiful about mortality. That's what makes what we're doing so powerful, is like there is an end.
Mm-hmm.
There is an end. And that's why
don't know when.
these moments are so powerful. Is there is one day going to be an end. And if there wasn't, maybe the importance of it would change. Maybe the relationship that you have would just be mediocre because, oh, well, I have her for forever. I'm always going to have my children. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. And
Even
it's
if they don't die, they're going to leave.
Exactly. And
so
it's one of the things, we even
cherish those
talked about it
moments.
last night. One of the reasons I get so frustrated with our parents as grandparents is it's like, the thing that sucks? She's never going to be 2 years old walking down Disneyland again.
Yeah.
And it's gone.
Yep.
And when you're 75 on your deathbed and you got $40 million in the bank and you go, man, I missed the most valuable time of my grandchildren's lives. That's what makes life so beautiful if you get it.
If you embrace that.
That's what's so beautiful. That's what Marcus Aurelius was saying is, you want to become better, you want to become more powerful, you want to build the most beautiful life you could, then realize that this life is going to end. This marriage is going to end. Your children are going to grow. And you only have so much time. And in that understanding, it breeds this discipline that you would never feel or find anywhere else on this planet. And in that, there's so much power. When we're arguing, we're both angry, how powerful it is to walk away for a moment and go, what if she's not here tomorrow?
Yeah.
This stupid ass, this is not even a good fight.
Yeah,
It's not a good fight.
What was even the point of this?
Yeah.
And it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's just about, was this worth the time we just spent putting into that? It was a wasted time.
It was wasted.
Every minute that goes by, every second that goes by is, that's absolutely a beautiful way to put it, because you can look at mortality in that way. It doesn't have to be a finality of, I no longer get to see this person anymore. They're gone. We miss them. We love them. But did we spend our time intentionally? Did we cherish what we did? Businesses, same way. Somebody was talking the other day. I can't remember what it was. He said, it was VT. You are going to exit your business one of two ways, period. You're either going to die in it or you're going to sell it and exit it.
Right.
But one of those two ways, you will quit business.
Yeah.
Which one do you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he got mad because his dad had died in his business and didn't make it successful enough to leave anything behind for anybody else. He just lived it his whole life to get by and then died and left nobody anything. And so he's like, we all were just, didn't have him because he was married to his business, and then he left and didn't even leave us anything to remember him by. He just was gone. So that's super powerful. I really
and
appreciate
that's
that.
why that I always tell people, what is your message? If you could talk to the whole world with a megaphone for 5 minutes, what's your message? And that would be my message. Is, it's a saying. It's memento mori is the phrase. It's a Latin word, and it means remember that this is mortality and that this will end. Everything will end. Your marriage is going to end.
Absolutely.
Your children are going to grow up. You're not going to be here. She's not going to be here. So why not have everything that you want right now? And my greatest thing is like, one day when I lie on my deathbed, whether it's tomorrow, in a year, or in 50 years, I want to be able to go, whew, that was great.
Yeah.
I'm ready for whatever's next.
And no regrets.
No regrets, because I did everything in the time I was given to do it. And now that I'm at the end, I finished this race. I did everything in discipline that I needed to do to have a beautiful marriage, to have wonderful children, to have the time and the experiences. And I'm okay to go on to the next.
Then, there's your piece.
Yeah. And that's the peace that you want. That's the peace that everybody seeks. But we think we're always going to have another day. Again, Ed on my stages, he always says, you know what your biggest problem is you think everybody else is going to die. You don't think that you're going to die. And that's why you have created the life that you've created. Next day, next week, tomorrow. Oh, well, we're fighting. I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, but what if? What if this was it?
Or people look at it and they're like, well, you're 37 and that guy's 80, so you've got more time than him. No.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the quality of his life might have been great compared to yours, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter.
And that's why we enjoy older people so much and their wisdom, because they're literally, they have the hourglass now, right? Like you get to an age where you're like, I have an hourglass.
Now I know.
Yeah, whereas you're like, shit, I wish I had that hourglass when I was 22 years old. But I did. I was lucky enough to have it because I sat in my living room and watched an hourglass run out with my father at 47. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I'm going to carry that with me from here on out. And then you get to make the best decisions because it's like, is this fight worth it? Yeah, it is worth it. Like, I'm okay to have this fight. This is a really important fight. And if I died tomorrow, I would still want to have this fight. And that's when you can have real progression, because there's things you should fight about. There's things you should argue over. There's passions you have. There's boundaries you have to have. Then I get to make that decision. But then when you come back to the small shit, and we struggle with this a lot, she brings an issue to me and I'm like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit.
Oh no, we do the same thing.
Yeah, like she'll say, oh well,
but it doesn't necessarily. We don't mean it that way per se. It just means like it's an insignificant thing.
Yeah,
you can make that decision. I don't need to be part of it.
Hey, did you hear what these guys said about us here? And I'm like, I don't care. Yeah, but they're saying it and everybody's hearing it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, not even a little bit. I don't care. I don't even want to have this conversation because tomorrow if I die, I don't
she thinks
like,
the same thing. You're not alone.
I want to do that. But that would be the greatest message I could ever share with the world is like, find true perspective to breed the discipline that you must have to have whatever it is that you seek, whatever successes you seek. You want to have a beautiful marriage? Realize that marriage is not going to be there forever. You want to have beautiful children? Realize they're not always going to be children and that one day they're going to be gone. You know, when my daughter spits up all over me, I can be pissed, or I can say, I only have a few years of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
When my kids throw shit all over the house, I'm thinking, you know, one day this house is always going to be spotless because it's just going to be her.
It's going to be quiet.
Yeah, it's going to be quiet. When it's chaos and I'm like, oh, can we just get a break? I think, yeah, but one day I'll have a break. For 40 years.
Sometimes they'll leave and they go to Branson. They got a place in Branson, Missouri. And so they'll go down there with the family. And for like the first day and a half, I'm like, oh, it's great. Like, nobody's I can do. I can work on work. Nobody's bothering me in my office. And I go to bed at night by myself and it's crickets and a fan gets turned on. And I sit there and I stare at the ceiling. And then I get the next morning, I walk downstairs. There's nobody eating breakfast. There's nobody watching TV. And I'm like, God, if this was my life, it would be miserable. Like, I would so miss that. You know what I mean? Like,
and one day you will.
Yeah.
One day you will.
So
have
cherish
that,
it when you walk down there and everything's crazy and tore apart. You're like, I'll clean it up, you know? Yeah. So what would be yours then from your perspective? Because that's his.
No,
oh, you're going to follow up? Right.
So good.
But your perspective, this is something we talk about a lot too, that even the husband, wife, male, female, the perspectives are completely different. They don't mean they don't align. They're just very different because your shoes and where you stand is in a different position than where he stands in his shoes. Yeah. So from your perspective, from a wife, from a supportive spouse, from all those things, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, kind of what you guys touched on earlier is just self-progression. And in every aspect, like working on yourself and showing up as your best self, so that especially when you have kids and you have these little people that you're managing all day long that are just watching, that they see that and they learn from that. Like I tell Keaton all the time, it's like he could say anything to the girls, you could teach them anything, but they learn from watching and they learn from action and they learn from seeing what he does. They see it. And they learn. I mean, even our oldest just started her doing her own little bracelet business, and she's just has this drive and this passion, and it comes directly from him and him doing what he does, because she sits back and she sees, whoa, Dad's doing this, I want to do that. And it's, I think that's the best thing you can do as parents, is just be that example and be that person that they can look up to and eventually become that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you for inviting us up here, bring us into your house, and doing the podcast with us. I think it's a super powerful message. I'm looking forward to seeing all the things you guys are going to do with marriage, because that's in our realm, and we love that stuff because, like you said, for people who are in one or in a marriage or in a relationship or seeking one, there's always a place you can start. like you said, you can become the person to attract that person because eventually you want one. If you're in one, these are things that you can do and you can change and you can develop to make it better. Or if you're struggling in one, these are things you can do to fix it.
Yeah.
And we always love the journey.
You gotta love the journey.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.